Hello and welcome to the Rhode Island Wave Spotlight Series, brought to you from the beautiful Coesit Inn in West Warwick, Rhode Island. Tonight we have the honor of a very special guest. He is the former mayor of the great city of Cranston, Rhode Island, and he is a current candidate for the United States House of Representatives, District 2, Mr. Allan Fung. Welcome.
Thanks, Don, for having me.
It's our pleasure, Allan. Before we even get underway, there is one thing I wish I could change about this entire night. And I wish my brother-in-law, Ray Vittori, who you knew very well, could be here with us. He'd be very happy. As you know, he passed away 10 years ago.
God rest his soul.
Yes.
I can't believe it's been 10 years. You know, he meant a lot to so many people, myself included, because he did, such a warm heart that gave of himself. So generous of his, not just time, but everything that he did.
Exactly.
And that's what I miss about him.
Absolutely. And my family will never forget the words you said at the dedication of his memorial on Federal Hill. We loved it. And that's when I really got to know you as a person. So before we get underway, maybe what we could talk about, which I find a lot of people like, is your background. Like, where did you grow up? What kind of friends did you have? Family?
Sure.
That type of thing.
It's funny because everyone just makes the natural assumption that I grew up in Cranston, went to school in Cranston. But, we actually started out in Providence. That's how I ended up at Classical High School. Because my parents were the typical first-generation immigrants that came to this country. Mom and dad were both born in China, ended up in Hong Kong at different points of their lives, met and got married there in 1969, came over to the United States, ended up in Rhode Island because I had an uncle that was here first. So, grew up on the basically south side, just Providence. My parents, though, started that Chinese restaurant that they ran for 35 years in Cranston. I started working there at 9 years old. I probably violated a few child labor laws, but that's okay. But I still remember this day, standing on a milk crate to wash dishes because wasn't tall enough to see over the sink, bussing tables. And those are my memories because I ended up learning so much about, family values, working together for, family business, but most importantly, serving people. And people in Cranston remembered me from not only just helping out in the restaurant, but I was that young little student that was in that corner booth studying before I get to work because homework was always important. That's one of the things my parents always drove into me is education's the key. Get your homework done. And I lived the American dream. My parents came here. I ended up going to classical, then Rhode Island College, then law school at Suffolk. But in my heart, I was so close to my family. I knew I wanted to start my practice, start my life and career here in Rhode Island. And that's why I'm back. So that's kind of a little bit, in a nutshell, who I am. And I got two younger sisters that's still here, along with my mom who still lives in Garden City to this day. My dad passed a few years ago, but, I'm sure he's looking down, very proud of all that we've done.
Are you sure you're not Italian? It sounds like an answer I would have given if I was asked that question.
Yeah, but you know what, though, Don? It's all of our stories.
Yes.
And that's what I love about it. And by the way, we serve many Italians because, the restaurant was right on Cranston Street, right on the backside of the lake, where a lot of people came over to our restaurants. We served many Italians, all walks that came through the restaurant doors, and that's why I also probably talk with my hands a little too much.
That's what Italians do.
Exactly. But that's probably what led me to also be mayor of Cranston because they're sitting there going, "Close your eyes. Is he really Chinese American?" So it's fun. And I'm so proud of my heritage, just like
you should be.
Many families are of theirs.
That's something we talk about all the time. That regardless of your heritage, you should always be proud of it.
Absolutely.
Regardless of where you're from, the fact that you're here and you've been successful and you work and you have a family, that's all important. That's what's important in life.
That's what's critical in life.
Absolutely.
And that's why I've enjoyed serving for so many years. You mentioned my 12 years as mayor of our state's now second largest city. I love the ability that I had to have an impact on families.
That's
Taking a
wonderful.
city that was, in the red
Yeah.
financially when I first got in, not only just fixing the finances and focusing on some of those big issues, but building a great quality of life in the community. And I'm so proud of those national designations we got of being named one of the best cities to live. But we did that by fixing the finances, focusing on businesses, both large and small. Take a look at that development in Garden City. That's a lot of pride and joy.
Beautiful.
But making sure we're investing in a lot of the recreational spaces for our families, making sure we invested in our library. We received national recognition in our library system just a few short years ago. That's how you build a better community and a better life for families. And that's what I enjoyed about my time of service in Cranston.
In fact, one of the questions I did have, could you be more specific? Like, what exactly did you do as mayor to bring the city of Cranston into the top 50 best places or best cities to live in America?
Yeah.
What did you do?
It wasn't an easy task because, Don, I think a lot of people, remember that when I first got into office, not only was, the city was in some tough financial shape, but it was during the height of the recession. So we were facing dramatic cuts from the state. Everything was kind of going the wrong direction for businesses, for all walks of life. Individuals are getting hit in their own pockets during that recession. So we had to make some tough decisions. One of the biggest accomplishments that I'm so proud of is we sat down with our union members, police and fire unions, with our retirees, and negotiated a plan to kind of help save our unfunded pension plan for them. And that negotiated, agreement saved the taxpayers of Cranston $7 million alone in 1 year. And those were the dollars we were able to invest in our schools, invest in our recreation programs, invest in our libraries, building a better quality of life. So that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect is working with our business owners, creating a more conducive environment where, if you're a developer, you can get that shovel in the ground quicker, or as a business owner, you can get your key in the door and opened up quicker because we cut through the red tape. They knew that they had a stable, administration that was willing to be open to them, work with them, and, so they can get open for business. Because coming from that business background, I learned is time is money, and sometimes that's more valuable than what you see, people crying for tax cuts or, tax treaties, tax deals. So providing that type of a pro-business environment led to thousands of new jobs. So when you put all that together, you're able to build up your tax base, build up the community, right? Having developers wanting to be there to build homes, invest in places like Garden City. And through all of that, the taxpayers benefited. And it creates this sense of unity where everyone wants to live in Cranston. That's my proudest accomplishment. You have that sense of pride of wanting to live there.
Well, part of that too was I've heard from different people, particularly people who live in Cranston, how you had a way of trying to bring people together that might have been on opposite sides or disagreeing, but you had a way to bring them together. How did you approach that to do that, to accomplish that?
First and foremost, it's me, and that's how I always operate. Whether it was in public service, it's 12 years as mayor, because when I first started, a lot of people want to label me one way or the other, but that's part of the political life. But when I governed, when I got into that seat, I checked the party labels at the door. I couldn't care whether you were Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, whatever it was. I'm there to serve you. And the best way to serve is by having a constant dialogue, listening to people, coming up with solutions that benefit all. You can't make 100% of the people happy because it happen. But what you do is you listen, craft the best solution you believe possible that helps the majority of the individuals in that space, and put forward that resolution. And that's what I always pride myself. And that's how we got, the pension plan kind of back on its feet, sitting together, not using, bombastic language. You did it by, working together, one by one with each of these individuals, listening to their stories, what they go through, willing to, take a look at the data of the facts that's presented. Be honest with people. That's what I've always been, in Cranston. That's what I continue to be to this day, and what I want to be down in Washington, D.C. That same type of common sense, working across the aisle to get things done, because it's about helping people.
Absolutely. It's funny talking about this. I can remember my brother-in-law way back when, who was a very strict Democrat, telling me before I met you, you have to meet this guy, Allan Fung. I said, who's Allan Fung, And he told me about you and what he thought about you. And he told me you had, 10 years ago, he said, this guy's got a good heart. He wants to help people. And that's why I like him. And for Ray to be a strict Democrat and then see a Republican that he said, here's the guy, that meant a lot. So I couldn't wait to meet you. That point.
No, it means a lot to me, to hear that, because I've always carried that way about me. I check those party affiliations aside and just enjoy dealing with everyone, dealing with people in general, listening to their life stories, their struggles, their successes. And honestly, during my 12 years as mayor, you know what I love the best? The kids, because I wanted to impact them and show that, look, in this day and age, we are seeing a lot of divisiveness coming from both parties, the extremes. I wanted to show to the next generation of students that, yes, we can have someone that can work across the aisle. It's not always about throwing punches, at one another, or the sharp words and everything else. I wanted to be that role model for them that, look, moderation, working together, can achieve the common good. I love going to the football games, the music recitals, showing up just at their graduations, whether it's elementary school, middle school, or even high school, and seeing each one of them move on in their careers. And those are the special moments I will always forever hold in my heart, in my memories, and what I hope to continue to do, in that next step that I'm, moving forward with.
Well, obviously, that's the future of the country, the children, the young people. And if they can learn everything, both sides, and what's right, what's wrong, what needs to be done to accomplish things, they're going to be a good generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
What pushed you to be an attorney?
If you go back to my high school yearbook, I've always wanted to be an attorney.
Really?
I guess that ability to kind of advocate for people, I always loved that, different way of thinking. And, I wasn't easy to grow up with. My mom and dad, I'd always push back as to why were you doing this, why that? But I always loved presenting a case. And even since high school, when I got involved in mock trial at Classical High School, I knew that this is the career I wanted to pursue. And no regrets, because that legal background has opened up so many doors for me. That power of education that my parents instilled in me is so critical, and why I continue to push it for every generation of students and families, because it's important. Not only did it, I was the first one in my family to go to college and then on to law school, but with that law degree, I was able to, get into, not only just trial work, serving at a law firm, and then, at the Attorney General's office as a criminal prosecutor, but then it opened up some doors into big business where, many people also remember me. I used to work for MetLife. I was head of their government department for a number of years before I became mayor. And now I use those skill sets both from a business side, legal side, during those 12 years where I was chief executive of our state's second largest city. And hopefully down in Washington, D.C., those legal skills are going to be needed to help craft legislation that's going to impact so many people, not just in the second district, but in Rhode Island, in every community across the country.
It's wonderful. So take it a step further. You told me why you wanted to become an attorney. Why on earth would you want to get into politics? Because I look at it this way. I've had friends that sit down, you should get involved with politics. I can't because I don't think I have the patience or the tolerance for certain things. So they would throw me out. So how do you say, you know what, I want to get involved there? And why?
And it was kind of out of a little bit emotional, little anger at what was going on in Cranston, the city that offered so much to my family. Where the restaurant was for 35 years, where my parents, when they could finally afford to move in, and my mom's still at that house in Garden City to this day. But I started taking a look at what was going on that caused the city to basically drop into the red. It was junk bond status during the height of the economy. And when I started looking into some of the decisions and some of the leaders, some of whom I supported personally, had made, it got me angry. Angry to the point I was going to be one of these individuals sat on the sidelines and just yelled and screamed about it. Or, you know what? I felt that I can get involved, and I did.
Yep.
Ran for the city council first, ended up succeeding, helping, people, helping right that ship. I loved it. And then ran for mayor. Wasn't successful the first time.
Right.
The closest race in city history, but I wasn't deterred. I loved the opportunity that it presented to help people. So I ran for mayor. And 12 years later, I'm very proud of all that we accomplished.
It's fantastic. I really don't know if I could have done it. My wife yells at me a lot of times, saying, "Oh, you get so thick-headed sometimes and angry." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'll calm down."
But you need always good people in politics and public service. You really do. So
I've gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of good politicians like yourself and others that are very good. And they care about people, and they want to do the right thing.
Right.
But sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. And just like anything, you do the best that you can, and let the chips fall,
Absolutely.
Out there as they may, and and that's what the election process is for.
Absolutely.
And people can decide whether they've done a good job or if they think they want new leadership, and that's the process.
One of the questions I really wanted to ask you has to do with one of the polls I've seen recently that says the vast majority of the American people feel that the country is going in the wrong direction. Should you be fortunate enough to become a congressman, could you kind of, without getting in too deeply, maybe give us a few ideas that are in the back of your head that you would say, okay, I'm congressman now. I need to do X.
Yeah. Let me kind of tell you what I've been hearing as I've been out on the campaign trail for this congressional seat, because what you're hearing, what was being, the results of those polls are accurate. Even in our backyard, in the 2nd District and in Rhode Island, I'm hearing a lot of frustration with a lot of people who feel that they're being left behind by the policies coming out of Washington, D.C., from the current president to the, Congress that's being led by Speaker Pelosi, where, inflation's out of control. They're paying for it, and it's hitting them every single day in their wallets, in their pocketbook, whether it's high gas prices still, high grocery prices still. When we were talking about supply chain issues, when could we ever imagine mothers were struggling with baby formula? Earlier today, I was at a restaurant, and we were doing, because the U.S. Chamber came up to, support me and endorse me. And we were at a restaurant, coffee house. And I was listening to the plight of their owner, and he was talking about supply chain issues, the difficulties he has in getting just even cups to serve his coffee every single day, to the problems that he's having struggling to get workers. So all of those issues are causing a monumental frustration to business owners. Residents are feeling the pinch every single day. And that's why I'm running, because we need to change a lot of that. My goals down in Washington, D.C. is to combat this inflation by making sure that we control the spending. There is way too much dollars going out of those coffers in Washington, D.C. that's having an impact and driving a lot of this inflation. And we've got a president and Speaker Pelosi that's out of touch when they're talking about, and we heard the president just on 60 Minutes this past weekend talking about, well, inflation just moved an inch or hardly at all. It's still at 40-year highs, sitting at 8.3%. What that means to people on fixed incomes, to people on Social Security, people like my mom, and your family members that are relying on Social Security, is they're taking an 8 to 9% pay cut in everything that they have to pay for that's already at higher prices, whether it's gas, groceries, or, we're coming into the fall and winter now, home heating oil, prescription drugs, everything has risen so much. And because of inflation, they're not able to keep up. And that's why I want to get down there to fight that, cut a lot of the spending. But most importantly, making sure that as we're transitioning to a renewable energy economy, and I'm one of these individuals that support, the transition and can say those words about climate change. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time. We can't just abandon, the production of oil right in our backyard and production of energy. We've got to be energy independent once again and make sure that, we do that now as we're transitioning over time. So those are two of my main priorities when I get down there.
That's excellent. Some of the things people talk about are electric cars, moving to electric. And I don't know your feelings on that. I've read different things on electric cars. Personally, I don't feel that's the answer. I'm a big hydrogen fan.
Yep.
Hydrogen's one of the most plentiful elements in the universe. And there are hydrogen cars on the road, particularly in California. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, we've got to transition over time. And what's happening right now is, I saw some of these bills that are coming out of California. Well, they don't have the infrastructure to be able to support or move towards all electric vehicles. When you have the governor talking about, let's conserve and not use as much electricity past 7 o'clock, what type of dynamic are we going to be living in when that's the reality? We're also at a system point in time where, we're going to be experiencing, if you try to overload the system, shortages, brownouts, and that's not a way to go. We've got to take a responsible, reasonable approach as we transition over to a green economy. And this is something that I would be supportive of, but you can't, shut the spigot off overnight.
No,
you can't do that.
It doesn't work like that.
Correct. There's a lot of other alternatives that we should. I'm more for an all energy, approach as we transition to a renewable economy.
And you do it a step at a time, and then you get to your goal.
Correct.
And people are happy. Is there anything like that I've left out that maybe you would like to comment on?
Sure.
I'm sure I'm getting old now. I'm 71. I forget things. I get all excited. I'm going to ask them this, and this. If I don't write it down, forget it.
No, you don't look 71, God.
Thank you.
No.
You got my vote.
Thanks. But what I can tell you is a couple more things that I really want to do. Just like what I did in Cranston, outside of, fighting inflation and focus on energy, I want to focus on our businesses here. I want to bring back some investments in infrastructure, whether it's at Quonset to make sure that we have great ports there,
yep,
up and down Narragansett Bay, Providence Port, to everything that's going on to support that green economy and even the blue economy that is burgeoning right now because of the great research that's going on at URI.
Yep.
That's one of the things I want to do. I also want to make sure that we're bringing back targeted investments to help support a lot of our businesses. In Rhode Island, so bring back some more manufacturing jobs that's here because, we've had too much of a reliance on overseas. But as we're seeing with the instability that's gone overseas, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, or in my parents' former backyard in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, that's not good. So we've got to bring back more manufacturing jobs here to not only just our country. Love to have some of that production right here in Rhode Island.
Absolutely.
Those are some of my other goals that I'd love to do. And I want to just leave off with, one last point. there's been a lot of talk about, what my positions are, what I stand about from the other side. And I'm not going to go down that route. But what I can tell you is this, I'm here to represent all of us. I'm not going to touch anyone's Social Security. I'm not going to touch anyone's Medicare benefits. I'm not going to touch Obamacare and get rid of it, as some of my opponents want to, kind of make and basically scare some of the seniors to believe, or, some information that's being passed along in some of the ads. I want to strengthen all these programs because I want people to know I've got a mother who's relying upon Social Security, just like many other families are. I've got a younger sister with disabilities, pre-existing conditions, who's relying upon and needs the support that comes out of our system. That's what I want to make sure that the voters of not just District 2, but the people of Rhode Island know about me. I'm a caring person that's worked across the aisle all my life, putting aside party politics, and that's the same type of person I will be down in Washington, D.C., caring for all of us, but delivering results, just like what I did in Cranston.
One last comment I have that I really like, and I tell all politicians this. When you're out talking to people, it's so important to tell them what you're going to do as an individual.
Yep.
Forget the other side. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to take care of this and all that. I've seen many people, and they enjoy hearing from a politician when he starts unloading, this is what I'll do if I'm elected. Yep. So I think if you keep that, you're doing it, and keep it up, and it's going to mean a lot. One last thing, Allan.
Sure.
People watching, if they're getting excited and they're saying, hey, I want to get involved with his campaign, where do they go to get involved?
Now, a couple of different ways that they can get involved, and that's a great question. They can jump online at www.fungforri.com, FUNGFORRI.com, or they can stop in at our headquarters. Right now, it's hustling and bustling, where we've got a lot of volunteers going in and out, knocking on doors, phone banks going on. Our headquarters is the heart of Cranston, 52 Ralph Square, right across from the post office. And for you true Rhode Islanders, across from Durfee's Hardware and next to Centerville Bank. So, I give directions in Rhode Island,
just the way Rhode
Islanders do.
Near here, near there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
That's how people can get involved.
Excellent.
Love to have their support for this campaign.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for being here. Good luck. I wish you all the best, you and your family. You're a good person, Allan.
Thank you so much.
I enjoyed this interview thoroughly.
Thanks.